My friend. I know you don't want to hear this, but I think you might be messing up your readings by taking them too literally. Let me explain. Hello, my friend. I hope you're doing well today. If we haven't met before, hi, I'm Charlemagne, and I read tarot professionally here on the internet. I also teach tarot to those that want to learn, and that's kind of why I'm making the video that you're watching now. I want to talk about something that came up while I was looking at the tarot subreddit a few days ago. Yes, I do use Reddit occasionally. It's actually where I started doing online reading. A little bit of charming moon lore for you. Let's take a look at this post together. The poster writes, tarot forums are filled with "this doesn't make sense" posts that boil down to trying to shoehorn a card into a spread where it clearly doesn't fit. Readers will do all kinds of mental gymnastics to try and reconcile these bad matches, in the end being more faithful to the spread than to the cards. Spreads are where the confusion comes from and not the cards. The idea of fixed spreads is relatively new to tarot, appearing in the early 1900s with the magical orders of Victorian England, where absolutely everything was categorized, boxed, labeled, and assigned a proper place, because that's what colonizers do. The stodgy empire provided a formality to the symbolism and placement that didn't exist in the taverns and brothels where reading fate by cards was born. The OG cartomancers in CD liminal spaces relied on the tableau, a small arrangement of 3, 5, 9 cards in most cases, sometimes whole decks, where the cards could talk to each other, relate, turn away from, and oppose each other in a living, breathing relationship to answer the question. This gave the eye lines of certain cards or the numbers of the pips an incredible and nuanced importance that spreads just rob them of. The magician looking at a lot of swords to his left and ignoring a lot of cups on his right, for instance. Is he standing between his loves and the enemy? Perhaps he's ready to leave home and go to war. Maybe he is blind to the love supporting him and all he sees is the fight. There was a dynamic fluidity with this kind of card reading, where the infinite voice of the cards could speak what it wanted to. Along comes fixed boxes of spreads, and all that complexity vanishes. The voice of the cards is limited to what the spread says, or in other words, modified by outside forces rather than given room to engage. It truly makes no sense to take an infinite oracle and then reduce it to a mere fraction of its power and make it confusing. Infinite cosmic power, itty bitty living space, indeed. Imagine a friend guiding you on a road trip and giving you clear, concise directions, but you keep reassigning their words to other moments of the day. Or worse, you ask them where to go, but force them only to answer based upon restaurants that you've eaten at together. A spread is the death of intuition. 2 cards together would remind you of an important, empowering conversation with your grandfather instead of pigeonholed into "why haven't I found them" and "where will I meet them?" Bleh. But I need structure. No, you don't. Divination is a dialogue, not a diagram. It is a sacred conversation where both parties can share and participate. Without the boxes, tarot can share moods, energies, patterns that you will not find in spreads where every card is isolated from the others. In a tableau, they can build on each other, talk to each other, form more meanings than they can all by themselves. You as a reader will break out of the one-dimensional fixed meaning of places and cards and graduate into an incredible nuance tarot brings to the chat. The constant crutch of "I drew X to clarify" vanishes because the cards on the table are all working in harmony and you don't have to clarify individual positions that clearly make no sense because of the spread. If you're a new reader, ditch your spread and try some tableaus and see where the cards take you. Old readers will no doubt be offended or dismissive. It's hard to ignore what has been working, but I say give it a try anyway. Let tarot surprise you. When I originally came across this post, I found it to be a bit pessimistic at points. But there is some truth to the way that the poster is describing this phenomenon, specifically one that I see a lot of new readers fall into the trap of. I'll refer to it as spread supremacy. Spread supremacy, much in the way that the poster describes, is where people force meaning onto a card in a spread simply because it's in a particular position in the spread, or reject the idea that something has meaning entirely because it doesn't fit the slick narrative that they're expecting their cards to give them, i.e., that doesn't make sense. Therefore, I'm not going to read it like that. It's something that I see a lot of people do. In tarot forums, in the comment sections of social media, even some of my own clients and students have fallen into this trap. Especially when we're talking about how cards work and how they interact with each other. I didn't even start off knowing not to do this. Considering the amount of resources regarding tarot that teaches you to read via a spread of some description. It took me a long time, nearly 2 years of reading tarot, to realize how easy it is to shift and form your spreads while you're reading them, in order to answer your questions. I'm personally at the point where I don't even go into readings with the spread in mind. I just ask my question and read the cards how they appear, ordering them as I go. But if you find yourself struggling to read your cards without the structure and reassurance of a pre-made fixed spread, then hopefully what I share in this video will help you in growing past that struggle and becoming more in tune with your cards and your readings as a whole. Actually, let's start with this idea of structure. The OP specifically writes that you don't need structure, and that the structure of a rigid tarot spread is actually hindering the voice of the cards from telling you what you need to know. I actually don't agree with this argument that you need to start reading without spreads or in like a tableau format like is expressed here, because it's completely unnecessary to beat the spread supremacy mindset. It also doesn't address the fact that, like, historically, reading half of the deck just to answer one question wasn't that common either, regardless of what OP says. That's entirely related to Lenormand's cartomancy, and not necessarily older tarot, but I digress. Regardless of whether you start with a spread or not, there is always going to be some structure to your readings, even if you end up creating them on the fly. The nature of tarot is that the information provided to you is going to be structured in a way that's understandable, even if you don't understand it yet. Wow. I apologize if you can hear construction noises in the background throughout any of this. My neighbors have been haphazardly using a circle saw for the better part of the day, and I couldn't film this any other day, so hopefully it's not too disruptive. You can technically pull any amount of cards in any order for any question, and a pattern will emerge regardless of whether you give it shape. It's just part of how the human mind works. It's also a lot of reason why tarot reading as a practice works. We are able to use the cards as an extension of our intuition, but it does require trust that we can find order in that chaos. You must trust yourself to be able to see the threads and follow them where they lead. In fact, trust is a very big part of this. People are deeply afraid of getting things wrong, especially when they feel like it's going to affect them on a spiritual or psychological level. You pull one wrong card and suddenly you've cursed your family to 1,000 years of suffering, except that's not how it works. Right and wrong are kind of arbitrary once you get to know what the cards mean in the tarot. Tarot doesn't magically create a future and then fix it in place for you. It's a tool that allows you to see the path that you're on more clearly. It's the same with any divination tool. Pendulums, runes, bones, cards like tarot or oracle, the list goes on. The power lies within you to see what your tarot cards have to show you. And that includes the effort that it takes to interpret each card both individually and as a whole. We must shed this idea that how you intuit and interpret things is wrong all the time. The information that you gain from a tarot reading is the information you gain, regardless of what other people say it is. It's important to be comfortable with listening to yourself and understanding what something means to you, not just the interpretations of others. While the meanings of each card remain, the nuances of those cards and their relationships to each other are going to be more key to a good reading than any structure you end up using. That's actually a good point as well, that many people neglect to observe the relationships going on between the cards whilst reading a spread. This is super observable in beginner readers, because they're generally the ones that go on the forum and they say,
I did this spread from this random book that I read and I don't know what any of these cards mean.
Like, no shit, you haven't even worked out how to do a 3-card reading for yourself yet? What did you think was going to happen? Primarily, what you end up seeing in the comments of posts like that on forums and social media is a card-by-card breakdown of that spread, and then what the commenter thinks that that spread means as a whole, which teaches us something about the spread that's useful to internalize quickly for reading tarot. The whole is always more than the sum of its parts. While each card individually teaches us something about the situation that we're in, that information exists in a vacuum that doesn't really express anything about the situation we find ourselves in. But when you start looking at the relationships between each of the cards, their position, and then the greater reading as a whole because of it, you begin to see the pattern, the trajectory, and the overarching message that the cards have to show you. You know what? I'm going to show you an example, because that's probably easier. Okay, so I'm hoping that this is going to be clear enough for you to be able to see. For this reading, the question is about a couple that are having communication issues, and one of them wants to know what the underlying cause of the issues is and how it can be addressed. This is based on a real reading that I did for a client of mine a few years ago. The cards that I pulled from left to right were the Knight of Cups reverse, the Two of Wands, and the Knight of Pentacles. When reading this individually card by card, I initially thought that this was about one partner, the partner not being read for, which makes some sense given the context of the situation that the client gave me, suggesting that in the near past, the partner in question was withholding themselves emotionally because they had a decision to make about the direction of their relationship, represented by the Two of Wands in the present position of the reading. Once the decision is made, the Knight of Cups will then shift into the Knight of Pentacles position, and upright as well, being more grounded, consistent, and pragmatic. While this is a perfectly valid interpretation of this spread, something just didn't sit right with me when I initially came to this conclusion. I think I found it odd that the Knight of Cups didn't flip into a Queen or King position, and instead moved into an entirely different suit, that being the Knight of Pentacles. So I was looking at this spread thinking, what am I missing here? And then it hit me, it wasn't just about one person, it was about both of them. The Knight of Cups being reversed did represent the other partner, this was true, but the Knight of Pentacles represented the client in this situation. When looking at the knights in the illustration, they were flipped in such a way where they appeared mirrored, looking away from each other but in the same general position in the actual illustration. While they were aligned because they cared for each other, they weren't on the same page about the way that they were communicating. This would mean that the Two of Wands between them represent the tension between their ways of thinking, one staying and one going. One thinking about the smaller things, and one thinking about the bigger picture. Something about my tarot cards, I don't know about other people's, but this is specific to me. But unless there is an expressed obstacle or a no in the reading, there is potential for anything to be overcome. So this reading then read to me like the client's partner was emotionally distant, but the client wasn't being emotional enough to start with, and the partner withdrew emotionally in response, causing the Two of Wands energy between them. When they both come to the table with their emotions and vulnerabilities, they would be able to overcome the miscommunications and understand each other. Very different from the original interpretation that I had, and all because I made a point of looking at the whole of the image that was being presented to me, not just their individual positions inside of the spread. Okay, let's move back to the face cam. I really hope that the camera's in the same position now, but okay, we're back. You can see what I'm getting at here, though, right? We need to be ready not only to look at the components, but the spread as a whole and the interactions that we might see within the spread itself. Which maybe speaks to the main thing that will absolutely destroy spread supremacy mentality for good. You need to be willing to put in the effort and to explore the possibilities of a tarot reading and what it might mean. And that means that the art of tarot reading is not actually a very quick process. If a long-time tarot reader makes a reading look fast and easy, it's only because they've been doing it for so long that they have a deep and intuitive relationship with their cards and with the act of tarot reading. When you're developing your relationship with your cards, it's going to take some time to understand how the information will be conveyed to you. Tarot is not a medium for the faint of heart either. The system is complex, multifaceted, and varies from deck to deck. The nuances can take years to master, and that's just a part of the process of becoming a tarot reader. We live in a world where we expect to get answers instantly, with no flexibility for change or nuance. We want to know if we'll get with our crush, if our ex will come back and grovel at our feet, if we'll have kids or get married or get that job that we want, and we want to know exactly when and exactly how it will happen. And people try to use tarot to get those answers. They will try to bend the cards to their will and make things make sense in a framework that they have already made for themselves, even if that framework doesn't match the physical reality in front of them. Tarot expects us to look outside of that narrow timeline that we've created for ourselves, to look deeper into those relationships with ourselves, our loved ones, and the wider world at large. The biggest and most important thing that you can do to escape the cycle of only being able to listen to the spread and just the spread is to realize that you are not its master. Your tarot cards and yourself should be a team. And that means listening to what the cards have to say, even if it seems weird at the time. You have to show patience, trusting that what you have been told is useful information, even if you don't understand it immediately. When you get out of this cycle of direct answer now and start treating your tarot readings more like a conversation via letter, then you realize that tarot can convey more insight, meaning, and understanding than even some of your most trusted allies. Okay, I'll quit gushing over my medium now. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I hope this could at least help someone break free from the rigidity of the tarot space and to really start expressing yourself in your readings. If you are interested in other videos like this, consider subscribing to the channel and watching some more videos from my How to Tarot playlist if you want to learn more about reading tarot. You can also consider joining me on Patreon, where I share tarot lessons, behind the scenes content, different tarot resources. We also have a book club, it's really fun. You can join as a free member, or you can join for as little as $2 USD a month. I also have other social media that you can follow me on. It is all at Charming Moon Co. I hope to see you again soon. But until next time, stay blessed, my friend.